Everyone, welcome, welcome. Biz to Credit is your sponsor today. I am your host, Dawn Fotopulos. I am the Hidden Profit Prophet. And the goal for today, for the next 45 minutes or so, is to show you how to grow your profits 50% in 5 weeks without finding new customers. And no, we're not blowing smoke. So let's just take you through it. Hold on one second. Okay, every question, 3 questions every business owner needs to ask. These are your global positioning satellite questions for your business. Are you making money? Do you have enough cash to pay the bills? And are you building wealth or destroying it? Making money, are you generating profits, and are you generating enough of them fast enough for it to be worth the risk that you're taking, right? And we all know that revenues, namely sales, don't always convert into cash. So we got to know if we have enough cash, enough blood flow in the business to pay our bills, and for how long, right? What is our burn rate? How long do we have before we need another infusion of cash? And then, of course, we're not in business for years and years, taking all this risk, making all these sacrifices without having something of terminal value that we can sell. At least everybody on this call needs to be building a business that eventually you can sell for a lot more than just the breakup value of the desks and your computers. So are you building wealth or destroying it? So what we're essentially going to do in this next 45 or so minutes, help you orient kind of where you are, and if we want to improve profits by 50% in 5 weeks. And by the way, we're not blowing smoke. I personally have done this for hundreds of businesses in 6 different industries over the last 20 years. So what we're going to talk about today is proven strategy. This is not something that's theoretical at this point, but we'll orient you, and then we'll give you the strategy on how to improve your profits by 50%. If you stay with us to the end of the presentation, I have a marvelous white paper for you, and it's called Your Cash Flow Statement is Speaking, but Can You Hear It? And it is absolutely radioactive advice on how to double and triple your cash flow in a period of 30 to 60 days. So stay with me. It is a very valuable gift, and this is the strategy that I use for all of my business owners, all of my consulting clients, to help them improve cash flow. So who is Dawn Fotopulos? I am Associate Professor of Business at the King's College in New York City. I am also a serial entrepreneur. I've been a real estate investor. I've been a hedge fund partner. I started my first business when I was in my early 20s. Every single one of them has been very profitable. I am an award-winning author. I am the author of the book Accounting for the Number Phobic, a survival guide for small business owners. And my illustrator is a Disney artist. The book won Best Business Book of 2015 by Small Business Trends. And my mission in life is to double the survival rate for small businesses. Or said another way, I am absolutely passionate about making sure that the smart, capable, motivated people that run these businesses can make money and cash flow in any economic environment. That's the goal. So one of the goals in order to achieve that is to improve your profitability. So that first question, right, are you making money? Everybody pretty much knows if they are or not, but for those who aren't sure, I want you to know that your profits are hiding. They're not always obvious. Working longer hours is not the answer to improving your profitability. And where your profits are hiding, your accountant might know, but typically you don't pay him to tell you. So it's really kind of a weird conundrum. Your accountant's there to keep you out of the crosshairs of the IRS, but they're not there to help you necessarily improve profits and cash flow. And your bookkeeper is really there to just make sure that your transactions are clean and current. And your salespeople, frankly, don't care much about anything other than revenues and purchase orders. Forget about gross margin or expenses. And frankly, your customers aren't going to tell you because they don't know. All they know is what you've done for them. So if it's true that thousands of business owners like you have unlocked 50% or more profits in their businesses, would you want to know about that? But more importantly, if we could do it in 5 weeks, this is not open-ended. This is a plan to get you there. If we started tomorrow, before Christmas. So let's get to it. And the first statement you got to look at and really know do the deep dive is in your net income statement, because that holds the key to the answer to that question. So we know this, okay? The net income statement, the P&L, and the profit and loss statement are all exactly the same thing. So if there's anybody out there that's getting tripped up on terminology, it's all exactly the same thing. And it basically is money in, money out, what's left over. The what's left over is your net income, and if it's positive, you're making money. If it's at zero, you're at break even. But by the way, you're not winning the game at break even, as we know, because you're taking on a lot of risk and you deserve to earn some profitability for doing that. And if you're in a negative position, that's an unstable position, but it is a manageable position, and we can turn that around. So as long as we understand that just showing a positive profit may not be enough, certainly break even is not adequate, and if you're losing money, we need to fix that. So that's your net income statement. Now, let me show you what we're going to go through step by step in this presentation. If we have 5 weeks to improve profitability by 50%, what are we doing in those 5 weeks? And the very, very first thing we have to do is we got to clean the books. Got to make sure the books are accurate and timely. And then once we do that, we have accurate data, which is the most important thing, right? That's our jump-off point. Week 2, we're going to look at your net income statement overall, but we're going to look at it line by line. And we're going to see what's working hard for the business, where you're losing money, where you're making money, and figuring out what the performance is right now and where the opportunities might be and where the risks might be. That's week 2. Week 3, now we're going to do a one-level deeper analysis on your net income statement, and we're going to look at it by your products or services. Each one individually. We're going to look to see which ones are making you money, which ones are actually losing your money, and in most cases, a lot of business owners don't know which ones are making or which ones are losing their money. And then we'll do some rebalancing. That alone, if you just went through weeks 1, 2, and 3 activities, that alone could unleash 50% more profits in your business. Week 4, we're going to look at your weighted average gross margin, again by product to service. And then week 5, we're going to look at gross margin by customer. And then we'll do some rebalancing. So let's go through weeks 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay? So the first thing is you've got to make sure that the books give you clear visibility, that your income statement, your cash flow statement, or your balance sheet are accurate and they are reconciled at least every 30 days. So some of the problems that I've seen when I've been working with business owners is that the books sometimes have double counting. So if they sell something on credit and then they get paid for it 30 or 60 days later, in some cases there's actually double counting. It looks like they've sold twice as much product or service as they actually have, and that's a problem because it overstates your bottom line, it overstates your gross margin, overstates your bottom line, and in most cases we build our expenses around what we think our revenues are, and so that creates sort of this negative multiplier effect, and it kills our bottom line. The other thing that I've seen is poor allocations with regard to expenses. Really, really, really important, especially if you're running a service business. How many people are running service businesses who are on this call? Just punch in the chat box if you're running a service business. I have 1, 2, all right, 3 people responded running service businesses. Here's your challenge. You've got to know what your cost of sales is in order for you to know what services you're offering are profitable and which clients are profitable. So poor allocations is a reason why we don't always get the accuracy that we need. Sometimes we don't take all the discounts that we should, or we don't reflect them in the net income statement. And then sometimes we don't recognize, or we're not up to date on all the bills that have been paid, so we under-report what our real expenses are, and that, of course, also inflates our bottom line so we don't get an accurate view. So it's really super important that accuracy is your first priority, and your bookkeeper and your accountant can help you get there. It is not your job to make that to do this. It is most important for the people that are around you whose job it is to feed you accurate information. Next, you have to have complete information. All of the transactions, whether they are cash or non-cash related, your payables, your receivables, all of that has to be captured, particularly your receivables and your payables. And then last but not least, it's got to be easily accessible for you. You should be able to click a mouse 2 or 3 times and get your net income statement. So does anybody have any questions about this? Make sure your books are clean. Make sure you reconcile your net income statement once a month, and your bookkeeper or your accountant should do that for you. So if you don't know if your books are in great shape, here's the way you find out. If the IRS audited your business today, they walked into your place of business today, would you pass with flying colors, or would you have an ulcer if that happened? And if the answer is that you'd have an ulcer or a lot of agita, it means that you either don't have easy access or the books are not being reconciled on a regular basis. Please take care of this. If you get nothing else from this webinar, please make sure you do that, because it will help you regardless. Okay, so that's week number 1. It should take no more than 5 working days to do this if you have the right players in place. So if you're not sure that you have the right people, or you need to find a bookkeeper or an accountant, go to findaproadvisor.com. It's an Angie's List for bookkeepers and accountants. They're rated. They tell you all their backgrounds. They tell you what their industry experience is. So you want to find somebody in your industry who has really great ratings, and it will help you beyond measure. And unless you're a CPA, you really shouldn't be doing the books on your own. You should be growing profits. You should be building relationships with your customers, managing your staff, and frankly, looking at your financial statements regularly. Okay, so findaproadvisor.com. It's actually not hyphenated. It's just no spaces, no hyphens. Findaproadvisor.com, and you will find tremendous resources there. Okay, so let's assume for a moment we've got all the books clean, and we know that the information that we're looking at is timely, and it's accurate, and it's complete. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look now at your net income statement. We're going to take a high Earth orbit view of the net income statement for the entire company. And what most people don't understand is that you are running your business on gross margin or gross profit, they're the same thing, not on revenues. Here's where people get stuck. They think if they're having a really hard time paying their bills, that the way they're going to solve that problem is they're going to go and get more customers. But getting more customers does not solve the problem. Sometimes you are scaling an unprofitable business. Please do not do that. Please don't think that just by growing your business you can grow out of all your problems. You've got to grow your gross profit first before you grow your customer base. Okay, so I start with gross margin. When I'm turning around a company, when I'm looking at a company that wants to grow profitability, the first thing I look at is gross margin, not even revenues. And again, the game is won by what? By squeezing more gross margin out of existing operations. And your goal for gross margin should be greater or equal to 30%. So that means for every dollar in revenue you bring in, you should be generating at least 30 cents on every dollar in gross margin. Because if you're not, there's a very high likelihood that unless you're Walmart, you're going to have a very hard time paying your bills. So if your gross margin is less than 30%, then take a look at, for example, your products and services mix, which we're going to do in a minute. Look at your customer mix. That's where your gross margin is hiding, and I'm going to show you how to unlock that. But your goal is a gross margin of greater 30% or greater. And quite honestly, because your expenses are really moving against you, right? If we take a look at things like marginal tax rates, if we take a look at cost of capital, if we take a look at cost of raw materials, inputs, cost of employees, and all of that stuff, it might level off for a while, but typically those expenses are moving against us and they tend to go higher over time. So that I would say to everybody on this call, well, 30% is your goal. If you can get more than that, then by all means you should manage to. So we start with gross margin, not with revenues. So, okay, let's figure out a couple of things. Let's just take a quick survey. Do you know off the bat if your gross margin, oopsie daisy, if your gross margin is at least 30%? Do you know this? So if you could put a yes or a no in the chat box. We're just taking a quick survey. It's a private survey, so nobody has to see your answers. Yes or no, your gross margin is at least 30%. We got one person who says, I don't know. One person who says, of course. One person who said not a chance. Okay. Here's the deal. If you said yes, then that's great. And let's find a way that we can improve your gross margin even higher than it is. But if you said no or I don't know, there's a very high likelihood that you're losing money or you're leaving money on the table. So let's take a look at gross margin by product or service, and this is business strategy. Okay, so week 3, we're going to take a look at your gross margin by product or service. So week 1, we cleaned the books. Week 2, we took a look at your net income by line. Now, we don't have 3 hours to do that on this call, but the first thing we looked at was gross margin in the aggregate. Now we're going to look at gross margin by product or service. Remember our mandate, to find 50% more profit in 5 weeks. So how do you find out what your gross margin is by product or service? You've got to look at your prices by unit. Take a look at your discounts that are offered, again, by product and by service. And you got to fully load your direct costs. This is a harder thing to do if you're in a service business. And then you take a look at what's left over before you get to operating expenses. In other words, all the supporting activity that happens in order for you to be able to deliver that service, that wonderful website, that interior design, whatever it is for your clients. And let me give you an example of what happens when you don't do this. I worked with an interior designer, very, very, very sharp lady, very capable lady. And she said, oh, I got great gross margins. Her gross margins were 90%. And I thought, wow, that seems super high for a labor-intensive business. Let me see her P&L. And I took a look at it by service, and what I realized was that she was loading all of her human labor into sales, general, and administrative expenses. In other words, after she shows her gross margin, it was all loaded up in SG&A, and it really wasn't an accurate view because probably 75 to 80% of that labor that was captured in SG&A was really direct labor that she was investing in being able to deliver a finished product to a client. So that was really her cost of sales. It really wasn't SG&A. They were, in effect, billable hours. So we moved a whole bunch of that expenses, again, proper allocations, right, from her SG&A line into her cost of sales line, and now her gross margins were not 90%, but in fact they were closer to about 32%, which is still pretty good, but she got a very different view of which of her services were really working hard for her and which were not. So what's the point? The point is, I guarantee you that there are people that are on this call that are delivering services that are not necessarily as profitable as you think they are to your potential clients. And so you need to know which ones those are and which ones to promote that are generating the most gross margin for you. So the way you do that is you're going to review each product or service along 2 vectors, right, along 2 characteristics, which ones are easy to sell, in other words, easy to close, and which ones make you the gross margin, or the biggest spread between what it costs you to actually deliver that and the price that you're able to charge to a client. So a quick and easy way to do this, actually, let's go here. Yeah, so a quick and easy way to do this is to look at a product and service matrix. Nobody ever talks like this, by the way. And this one slide is worth the entire hour of time we're going to spend together. So take a look at this. It looks confusing, but it's really pretty straightforward. Above the line, right, high margin items, and below the line are low margin items or services, right? Low margin products or services, high margin products or services. On the right hand side, those are the ones that are easy to sell. On the left hand side, they're the ones that are a tough sell. Whether it's a tough sell because it's complicated, a tough sell because it takes a long time in order to close the business. But if you take a look, the high margin, easy to sell is in the upper right hand quadrant. That's where you want to focus all your marketing and sales efforts. And if you don't know which of your products and services are high margin, you need to find that out, because these are the ones that are paying the bills for you. Okay, not necessarily the ones that you're selling the most of, because in many cases when I do this analysis, I find a lot of products and services in that lower right-hand quadrant that they're low margin, but they're super easy to sell. So we close it all day long, but guess what? They're not generating enough margin for us to be able to pay our bills. So when we do pay our bills, we're really struggling, and we don't know why. So what's the point of this? The point of this is you want a business that works hard for you. You want a business that is generating products and services that work as hard for you as you do for it, and you need to know which ones are costing you money and which ones are really delivering the gross margin that you need. And the next thing you need to do is you need to know which customers are paying the bills and which ones are bleeding you dry. So if you did nothing else but took this matrix and you took and made 2 arrows, right, 4 arrows rather, on a sheet of paper, and you mapped which of your products and services fall into quadrant 1, which is that upper right-hand quadrant, quadrant 2, lower right-hand quadrant, quadrant 3, upper left, quadrant 4, lower left, what you know is your first priority is quadrant 1, upper right. It might be that your second priority is the high margin and run that in conjunction with the ones that are easy to sell. But you're still going to generate high margin. It's still high value business for you. The only way it makes sense for you to go after the low margin easy sell, which is that lower right hand quadrant, is if you can turn that product or service so fast that it generates a lot of aggregate gross margin. You got to turn it fast. It can't be inventory that sits on the shelf, or it can't be a service that takes you 2 years to deliver it, or 18 months or 6 months. It's got to be very, very fast turnaround. Then it makes sense to go after the low margin, easy sell business. Everybody with me? Anybody have any questions? Let's keep going. Okay. So we're done now with weeks 1, 2, and 3. Now we are into week 4. I want you to look at your revenues versus your weighted average gross margin. What does that mean? We want to know how much of each product and service was sold. So we need to know 2 things. We need to know what the gross margin is by product and service, and then we want to know what the average gross margin is by product or service, because that tells us the weighting, right? So if we're selling a lot of something that's very low gross margin, we may not be winning at the game. We want to know how these products and services are weighted, again, by gross margin, not by revenues. Now, most of you know which products or services are generating the most revenue on a percentage basis. You know that. And if you've been in business for longer than a year, you know it cold. But what you probably don't know is you probably don't know it by gross margin, and I'm arguing with you to find that out. So let me give you an example of what happens when you find out which of your products or services are high or low gross margin, and what happens when you rebalance them. And overnight, you will find hidden profits in your business. So the lady who took my portrait photograph is just a great lady. She's very talented, and she takes weddings, and she also does family portraits. Well, when she does the family portraits, she does it in her photography studio, and it takes about an hour and a half, 2 hours to do a sitting. When she does a wedding, it's a whole day affair, as you can imagine, right? It's an 8-10 hour day for her. Her average sale on a wedding is about twice what it is for a family sitting. So she thinks she's doing really well and making a lot of money on a wedding. It takes her 5 times the amount of time to shoot a wedding, but she thinks she's making a lot of money. The challenge for her is that the amount of time that she's got to invest in shooting a wedding is 4 to 5 times what it is to shoot a family portrait. So you know where I'm going with this, okay? So in the same time it takes her to shoot a wedding, she could shoot 4 or 5 family portraits without having to load up the car and travel wherever she's traveling and so on. So what we did was we just simply said to her, listen, if you shoot a wedding, shoot half the number of weddings or a third the number of weddings that you're shooting now. Shoot them because you love the bride, not because you're making a lot of money. But shift the balance on your marketing and your sales efforts to family portraits, and you will instantly make at least 50% to 100% more profitability by shifting the balance of how you spend your time. That's exactly what she did. And for the first time in 19 years, I kid you not, she had 5 figures in the bank by the end of December. And instead of tears of frustration, they were tears of joy. We can do that kind of analysis in each one of your businesses, and that is one of the most powerful ways that you can unlock hidden profit in your business. So not just revenues, but the weighted average gross margin for each product or service that you're selling. So once you have that information, once you can take your net income statement and you can break it out by product or service and then figure out right now on a weighted average basis which ones are really working hard for you, which, generating gross margin, which ones aren't, then you can keep the ones that are really generating the greatest gross profit. You can either discard the ones that aren't, or you can change your pricing structure so suddenly it becomes worth it for you to offer that. It enables you to pivot, right? What your products and service offering is now, and really, frankly, where it should be, because your most important asset is your time. For those of you that are in service businesses, your most important asset is your time, and you got to value your time, because if you don't do it, no one's going to do it for you. So, okay. So here's the news flash. If you change that product or service mix, just that, you can unlock unbelievable amounts of profits in your business. And I will tell you this, and I know you think I'm blowing smoke, but I've got too many testimonials to prove otherwise. I actually don't unlock 50% more profit in businesses. In most cases, we unlock about anywhere from 150 to 250% more profit in 5 to 8 weeks. So what I just told you is probably worth millions of dollars in value back to your business. So the big question of the hour is, are your sales and marketing efforts focused on profitable products and services? And I submit to you that if you have a sales force, they are lazy, because most salespeople are lazy by definition. They want the easy sell. Let's face it. Who doesn't, right? If something's easy to sell, we're going to go sell it and get our commission, because we get commission on revenues right now. And I think the world is going to change, because the salespeople have to care about gross margin as much as you do. And they need to get paid when the company gets paid. So once you know which of those products or services are highest gross margin, then you got to look at the ones that are easiest to close and the ones that have the highest gross margin, and your sales plan and your budgets need to wrap around those products and services. So we're coming towards the end of the calendar year, and this is the ideal time to understand what's going on in your business and to plan for the next year, right, for 2016, with your highest gross margin and your easiest to close products and services. And we did this with Wheels on Credit, and these guys were actually losing money every month, and they'd been doing this for 17 years, I can't even tell you. And we looked at their products and service offerings. We figured out the services that were most profitable and frankly were easy to close, because we figured out that he had no competition in that particular service, which was towing, believe it or not. And the towing business was only like 10% of his business. Once we really ramped up the marketing and sales around the towing business and we shifted the balance, instead of the loan company, which was basically financing used car sales, all of the efforts, all his internal employees were now focused on building that towing business. Within 90 days, he went into a plus profitability position, a net income position, and he is doubling that profitability month over month. The business is growing so fast. So it can happen very, very quickly. So let's take a look at gross margin by customer, which is what we would do week 5. Your net income statement has to be looked at both by through a product and service lens, but also through a customer lens. Your customers are just like your investment portfolio. I want you to think about that. If you have a retirement account, there's a high likelihood that you have some stocks and bonds and who knows what else in there, and you diversify that portfolio both for return and also for risk management. It is no different in managing your client base. Okay? Every single client is like an investment. Every single client base is a revenue stream, for better or worse. They are. So one of the traps that a lot of business owners get into is they think that their largest customers are the most profitable. Please don't get into that trap. The same way that you think the product or service that sells the most is the most profitable, we think the largest customers are the most profitable, and it is rarely the case. Because what happens is, if you have a big customer, right, the big customer demands a lot. They need a lot of servicing. They need a lot of unique systems and processes and so on. So it could very well be that your largest customers are not the most profitable, but in fact, your largest customers might actually be losing you money. So what's the net effect for you in managing the business? Well, in many cases, what I've seen is that business owners are over-servicing their unprofitable clients. These unprofitable clients are draining tons and tons of time and resources that, frankly, they're not paying for. The flip side to that is that you've got a ton of potential in your smaller clients. Now, it's not necessarily just bigger versus smaller, but there are tons of high potential clients that are in your portfolio that you don't really recognize as high potential, and you're underservicing those high potential and high profitable clients. So guessing is expensive. Okay, and let me give you a data point no one's ever going to tell you, but this comes from Philip Kotler of Harvard Business School. If the statistics are correct, and he did a survey over 20 years among I don't know how many thousands of business owners, 30% of your clients are profitable, 30% of your clients are at break even, and 30% of your clients are underwater. Now, when you think about that, if Kotler's right, over 2/3 of your clients are not generating profitability. But the problem is we don't know which ones are which. So it's finally time to figure that out. And that's why gross margin by customer becomes so important. So what I'm really arguing for is that you do the diagnostics, which is what that is all about. We do the operation. We pull apart your client database. We look at the top 100 customers or the top 30% of your database, and we're going to look at revenues per client, and we're going to look at what they buy from you on a regular basis, what the weighted average purchases are, and we're going to look at their gross margin by client, because that's going to tell us really kind of which ones are most profitable, and it will also give us some indication as to where opportunity might lie. And if you've only had a customer buy from you once, you have no idea what their upside potential is. Just remember something. The first person any client makes with you is never going to be the largest purchase, because right now you're on probation. So the first step to all of this gross margin by customer analysis is you got to know what your gross margin is by product or service in order to do it by customer, because this is not going to be meaningful unless you do that, which is why we do that in week 4. Okay? Does anybody have any questions? Let's keep going. Okay. And the reason why we care about gross margin by customer is because once we know this, we'll know which ones are paying your bills. And then we can begin to correlate how much effort we spend in managing these high profit relationships and make sure that we're not over-servicing unprofitable customers and make sure we're not under-servicing profitable customers or high potential customers. So if you do have customers that are unprofitable, and I promise you everybody on this call does, we all do, there are a number of things that you can do. We're not going to go into all the things that you can do, but let me give you a couple of ideas. You look at your pricing structure, okay? And if you have an unprofitable customer, and it may be it's because they don't pay you on time. They take 3 months or 4 months to pay you. Your pricing structure has to reflect that. If somebody wants the luxury of time to pay you, then you have to charge a cost of capital on top of what you would normally charge, because you're functioning like the bank. That person or that organization that pays you in 4 months should not get the same price as somebody who pays you right away. And in most cases, we recognize this sort of intellectually, but when we look at the way we actually run the business, we find that there's a lot of inconsistencies. So, and then the other question is, what can you do to grow these relationships? Let me give you a $1 million idea that if you do this, just like Michael Dell did, it will completely transform your business. 50% increase in profits is just the beginning. Michael Dell did something that was very powerful. He got his top 10 clients in a room once a year, twice a year. He bought them breakfast, which, by the way, is the cheapest meal of the day. And they were in non-competing businesses, and he co-created with them. I mean, he used them as his advisory board. He told them what was happening in the business, and then he used it as an opportunity to find out what was going on in their businesses, and for him to become a strategic partner with these businesses instead of just simply a computer, manufacturer, supplier. And it was astounding. Multi-billion-dollar ideas came out of those discussions. And also, a lot of risk that he didn't realize was there got surfaced as well. So convert your top customers into strategic partners. And I promise you, they won't go to your competition so easily. So are you making it easy for happy customers to refer others to your businesses? Every single one of your customers has an ecosystem that is a valuable ecosystem to you, whether it's other suppliers that can give you competitor information or the opportunity for you to speak at large conferences and so on to highlight your business. Make it easy for your happy customers to refer others to you, because then they become your free sales force, and that's called positive leverage. Okay, really, really super important that you know which customers are bleeding your business. And remember what I said, 2/3 of your customers probably are not generating enough gross margin and profitability for it to be worth your while to service them. So something's got to change. And you've got to know not only if they're profitable or not, but how much support you're giving them. So that fully loaded cost needs to be calculated. So can you convert them to profitable? Here are some ideas. You can change the pricing or the discount schedule for them. Remember, I said that based on their payment history. You can focus on a different product or service mix with these customers. If they're only buying from you the low margin items, then this is an opportunity for you to bundle price, and I talk about this in Accounting for the Number Phobic, bundle price other products and services where they cannot buy that one low margin product or service. They need to buy a bundle from you so that your average gross margin is higher. And then you need to streamline the after-sales servicing so that your salespeople or yourself or your service people aren't getting dragged into transactions that are taking, many, many man-hours where you're not getting a return. So these are just some top-line ideas. I have probably 100 like this, but these are just some things for you to think about. Now, the good news about this presentation is it will be recorded. So I know I'm going very quickly. If there's anything that you're missing, you will have the opportunity to watch it again. So here's the thing. If you can identify those profitable customers, and if you have a focused effort both on the sales side and the service side, it will unlock your profits overnight. And I gave you the example of the photographer early on. I have thousands of examples that I could give you, like right now. But this is the way you grow your profits and your cash flow. And by the way, friends, you are in business for that bottom line. That's why you're in business. Everybody else has to get paid, but the bottom line is what you get to retain and invest back into your business. So I've done webinars like this. This is one of 3 webinars, as you know, and this webinar is growing your profits by 50% or more. I'll take you through the other 2 webinars. We're going to be doing one a month for the next 3 months. And everybody asks me the same question, can you review it one more time? I missed that. My colleague needs to hear you. Do you have notes? I know a ton of people who need to hear this, and I thought the best comment actually was the last one. That was from the Entrepreneurs Organization, and these are people that own multi-million-dollar businesses, and this one guy said, this was the most mind-expanding experience I've ever had. So if this is interesting to you, and I hope it is, you need to understand that you don't need special qualifications to go through this analysis, these 5 weeks. You really don't. It doesn't matter if you're not an accountant. You don't have to have any pre-knowledge. Even if you hate accounting, the outcome will still be positive and it will still be there for you. But the point is, I have spent so many years making this super crisp and getting through it in a very short period of time. It is a proving system. That's why we call it that, that you can find the hidden profits that you had no idea were there. So a lot of people, after I've given these kinds of webinars or talks, have said, you know, I really want to do this, but I'm not sure where to start. So what I did was I put together something called the Hidden Profit Academy, which is a 5-week challenge. And the Biz to Credit people know me very, very well. Rohit Arora and I go back quite a few years. He was on my panel at the New York Times Small Business Summit Conference when I was panel moderating there. And he knows that I deliver results, and that is my mission in life. So the point is, I want to make sure that everybody who's on this call and everybody who listens to this webinar unleashes these profits that are there, and that they don't have to do it by themselves. We'll do in a few short weeks what normally would take years to do, and it is very easy to follow. Basically, it's a series of videos that go through each one of these weeks, and then I am on a live call every week. Everybody has to follow the program, otherwise you won't get the benefits. And then I also will do a one-on-one review of your P&L so that we know exactly what's happening in your business. So we'll do in 5 weeks what most people can't accomplish with years of struggling. So this is basically what happens in the 5 weeks with the Hidden Profit Academy. It's 5 quick courses, it's 5 weeks, and then a weekly call. So that's for the group that's taking the course, and then we have one-on-ones. So week 1, we go through the 50% more profits. It is a prescription, not a recipe, so you have to follow the yellow brick road. Week 2, some of this is going to be a review for you, but some of it's going to be a lot of aha moments. It's me in front of a whiteboard taking you through the strategy step by step, and then I make sure on that weekly live call that you're actually doing what we are prescribing you to do. Every single one of those videos has a study guide. You don't have to take notes. It's right there for you. Each video is about 10-15 minutes long, and the time it takes you to drink a cup of coffee, you can watch it. So even busy business owners can do this. Week 2, we're going to show you how to improve your cash flow by 100%, which is the next webinar, by the way, I believe it's December the 16th, and you will start to see advertisements for that. So stay close to us, because we want you to see those profits translate into cash flow, which is ultimately what we really want to do. Week 3, I'm going to show you how to build a multi-million-dollar business you can sell. Week 4 is guerrilla marketing, and week 5 is sales secrets, and that shows you once we get the engine really nice and clean and humming, then sales secrets will help you punch down on the accelerator for revenue generation, because one thing we want to do is we want to build profitable revenues, not just revenues. So I will be on a live call each week to answer your questions. I am very close to the people that are in the Hidden Profit Academy. I have 12 people right now that I am mentoring. I don't have more capacity than to take on another 10 people, but if there is anybody interested, I will tell you exactly what this is. We take you through the net income statement. If you are ever pitching an investor, if you are using the Biz to Credit platform to get a loan, you need to know this stuff, and you need to be prepared, because you will never have a second chance to make a first impression. So if you are doing that, I can also help you prepare what you need to have in order to pitch and get the loan. And frankly, getting the loan is the easy part. Knowing how to pay it back is the hard part. So we can do some customization in this program if that's what you're interested in. So it is fast. It is fast. 5 weeks is really warp speed. Would you invest 5 weeks for the next 15, 20 years of your life? I think that's a pretty good investment, and everybody needs to know this. So the second week, we take you through 100% more cash flow. We do the deep dive in how to do that, managing your payment terms, invoicing the client, insider tips on how frequently you should be invoicing the clients, what the size of those invoices should be, what kind of information should be on those invoices. I know you think I'm splitting hairs, but I promise you I'm not, because if you follow the prescription, you will get paid so much faster than you are right now, and I've proven this in the real world. And I will also go through with you painless ways to collect from the customers who owe you money. And that, my friends, is a very important part of your business if you're a business owner. You got to become world class at this. And there's a way of doing it where it doesn't feel like begging and it doesn't have to be a negative experience. So again, I can show you ways to do this so that your clients actually hear it as a happy call and not an adversarial call. Okay, and building $1 million business, very important to know how to manage short and long-term debt. How many people on the call know that if your current assets are smaller than your current liabilities, you are functionally bankrupt even if you have cash in the bank? Anybody know that? That is a true statement. That is not my opinion. That came from Norm Brodsky, who, by the way, is a chapter 10 of my book, and he said, because a current loan can be called in at any time. And if you're not liquid enough to cover your current liabilities, you are functionally bankrupt and you got to fix that. So really important to know when you should take on debt and when you should just run a very, very tight ship, even if cash is tight. We'll take you through the mistakes that you should avoid to improve your loan acceptance rate. Don't forget, your loan application is a marketing document. And what the banks are looking for is they're looking for low or no risk. Remember something, please. Banks are in the business of making money. They are not in the business of making loans. They are in the business of making money and managing risk. And we need to present you as somebody that is the best investment for them. Are they going to get their money back? Are they going to get the interest rate that they're asking for? And what is the likelihood that you're going to default? Those are the three questions that your loan application needs to answer, and we need to answer it in a very compelling way. So I'm going to show you simple ways to build your asset base, to build your owner's equity, because that, my friends, is the key to building $1 million, multi-million dollar valuation. That is also ultimately why you're in business. So your accountant isn't going to run your business anymore. Then your mechanic is going to drive your car. And guerrilla marketing will take you through revenues and gross margin. Again, this is the online course, and then I do the live calls with you. I'll show you how to reduce new client acquisition. So once we get the engine nice and clean and it's running and humming, I'll show you how to reduce your cost of client acquisition with leverage and not more expense. And I turned around a $130 million business at Citibank with this kind of thinking. So it is absolutely radioactive. How many people on this call know that customer complaints are responsible for 87% of new product ideas? So I'm going to show you how to use customer complaints in your favor. Instead of losing credibility, I'll show you how to gain credibility when things hiccup, because we all live in the real world and we know that it does. Sales Secrets, which is the last set of videos, there are 10 of them. I will show you how to ring the cash register faster. In other words, how to put together a sales plan, a 12-month sales plan, so that you'd never have to cold call again. I'll show you how to double and triple closure rates. It is a bottoms-up strategy, which most people don't use. It is the most effective way to grow revenues. It is the cheapest way and the most effective way. And ultimately what we want is we want our customers to become our free sales force, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so this is the value of that 5-week roadmap. You get your 50% more profit net income statement. There are 15 videos there. All of these courses have a $500 value, roughly. The Guerrilla Marketing Sales Secrets, the study guide, and the award-winning book and the study guides have about a $350 value. Everything all together, not including my mentoring, has about a $2,800 value. So that link that you see right below that is where you can access these courses. You can look at the descriptions there and the pricing there. But because I'm going to be personally mentoring each and every person who signs up today, you will get the book, you will get the study guide as my gift to you, and more importantly, my mission is to make sure that you unlock these profits. So I'll have 2 personal consultations with you. You will send me your net income statement. You'll slice and dice it by product, by service, and by customer. We'll go through it, excuse me. And so we'll look at it in the aggregate by customer and product. And then you're going to leave with a 90-day action plan. So just the strategy sessions with me are worth $2,500. The courses, the guides, the weekly calls, all of that, as I said earlier, is $2,800 value. The total value is over $5,000. Right now I bill out at about $500 an hour. So this is a way of providing enormous value to you without you having to spend the money, because for today, as a Biz to Credit webinar guest, all of this is available to you for $19.97. And that includes all of the videos, the guides, and my personal consultation. If for some reason you are not happy with your results, you have to go through the whole program. You can't stop in the middle of the program, but once you go through it, there's a 100% money-back guarantee. But the point is, you've got to take action today because my capacity is limited. And I hope you do. There is absolutely no risk to you. So let's just go through. These are the 3 webinars that we are showing you for the next 3 months. Grow Profits 50% is today. Growing your cash flow 100% is going to happen on December the 16th, and we're very excited about that. And January the 6th, it's really just sort of a high Earth orbit view of building $1 million business that you can sell. And of course, this follows our roadmap. And these are introductions really to what we think is going to be the most important thing for your business. And if you need to get a hold of me, this is the best way to do that. I am on LinkedIn. I am a power contributor on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to me. Please send me an invite. I promise you I will accept your invitation and link to you. My personal email, which I do not give out all the time, is dfotopulos@gmail.com. So if you have any questions about what I talked about today, I am happy to answer your questions. And if you are interested in signing up for the Hidden Profit Academy, the link is below. It's on Knowledge Link TV, Hidden Profit Academy courses and pricing, so you can review them. But it is really thrilling to be with you. Thank you so much. Send me your email or send it directly to Biz to Credit, and we will make sure you get your free gift. Your cash flow statement is speaking, but can you hear it? And that's a great introduction to what we're going to talk about on December the 16th, which is a very similar format to this, except I'm going to show you how to improve your cash flow by 100% in 5 weeks' time. So I am happy to take questions. Does anybody have questions or comments? We are here for you. Let's see, we have one question. One question is, I don't know if I can get a hold of my net income statement by client or by client. Okay, so one of the things that we could do is we can chat about what's the quickest, easiest way to do that. And that you don't need to worry about. If you don't have it easily accessible, we can give you some strategies on how to do that. There may be a minor cost involved. We would not do that for you, but we'd look at the resources you have available to you and make some recommendations. So don't worry about that. We can get you prepared for that. Does it work for product businesses as well as service businesses? Yes, the answer is it absolutely does. And service businesses, you know what it takes for you to run your business. You know what your expense structure is. We would look at all of that if I looked at your net income statement. So there will be opportunities to improve productivity as well because I've done so much of this in my lifetime. Does anybody have any other recommendations or questions? Why am I doing this? Oh, that's a great question. I'll tell you why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I don't think a 50% failure rate is okay. And if you take a look at the statistics right now, it used to be that small businesses would fail at a failure rate of about 50% in the first 5 years of operations. Now they're failing at a failure rate of 50% in 4 years. And I don't accept that as a given. I think small business owners are the best of us. They are the most motivated. They are the smartest. They are the most self-sacrificing in anything I can do to help them secure a hope and a future I want to do. And that's what the book was all about, and that's what the Hidden Profit Academy is all about. And I'm very, very thankful. I want to give a shout out to the Biz Credit people, to Rohit Aurora, John Mooney, and Sean, and everybody that's helped make this webinar possible, because they bring it to you. It costs them to do this. I am not getting paid for doing these webinars. They are real content driven. They are making this available to you at no cost. Please tell your networks that this is available, whether you choose to buy the Hidden Profit Academy or not. I guarantee you, if you take what I've said to you seriously, there is at least $1 million idea in here that can change your future. So are there any last questions or comments before we conclude the webinar? Okay. Well, this is Dawn Fotopulos. I want to thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to hearing from you real soon. Feel free to reach out to me again. This is my email, dfotopoulos@gmail.com. Thanks so much.